Discover the incredible amount Trump gained as president, an unexpected journey of wealth reveal, the headline from the town's newspaper screamed out from the crowd at Joe's diner, ripping through the morning bustle. Sarah, 37, felt a tightening in her chest. She was still wiping down a table when the clatter of forks and knives fell silent. Eyes turned toward the article like moths to a flame, revealing the staggering wealth that politicians accrued during Trump's presidency. The paper crinkled in her hands as she processed the implications. Her heart ached for Jake, her 16-year-old son, who was trying to find his place in a tricky world. "Mom, can you believe this?" he exclaimed, his youthful enthusiasm met with the weight of reality. "It's like they're all in on something, and we're the ones left behind." She nodded, a lump forming in her throat as she slipped into an adjacent booth, sinking into the worn vinyl seat. The sadness of their small town, once vibrant with laughter and hope, now lay like a ghost before her. As Sarah slouched at the edge of her booth, memories flooded back, backyard barbecues, neighbors watching each other as kids, and laughter over lemonade. Now, the very essence of their tight-knit community felt frayed, broken by rising inequality and painfully charged political debates. The simple joys of life felt like fading memories in the shadow of wealth, power, and rage. The pressure mounted. Amidst the chaos, her estranged father reappeared, a figure who once embraced her with pride. He had fallen for Trump's promises, leaving Sarah wrestling with their shared history of pain and loyalty. She felt the surface between them crack, pulling everything she thought she knew into question. When his name entered conversations, tension snapped like a dry branch. Friends, family, they were drawn like lines in the sand, each side digging in deeper. "I'm hosting a town hall," she said one night, her voice steady, her resolve growing. Both Jake and her mother eyed her, the weight of her words compressing the air between them. "If I don't speak up, who will? I need to fight for something better." The determination in her eyes sparked something deep within Jake, and for a moment, she saw the pride in his gaze. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In their town's auditorium, a mixture of apprehension and hope washed over her as she stepped to the front, breathing fast. Faces she recognized, some with kindness, others hard with judgment, flooded the seats. "Look around," she urged, her voice rising above the murmurs, confusion etched on every line of concern. "We are all facing the same storm. Is it wealth we want, or dignity for our families?" The weight of her words filled the air like a charged storm, and she could feel each heartbeat in the silence following her plea. But just as the tide seemed to turn, an unexpected secret scraped against the surface, as a figure stepped forth from the audience, leaving Sarah feeling more vulnerable than ever. This could just be the beginning of a reckoning that would shake the very foundation of their community. Would they choose to stand together, or would the past crush them down, forever severing the fragile threads of unity? The figure stepping forward from the audience sent a ripple of confusion through the crowd. It was not just anyone, it was Mike, the town sheriff. His broad shoulders and confident gait had always commanded respect, but today, a crease of uncertainty marked his brow. The murmurs intensified as he reached the front, eyes locked on Sarah. "Sarah," he began, his voice deep yet shaky. "You've got guts, standing up here." He paused, scanning the room, gauging the crowd's reaction. "But there's something you need to know. Something we've all been keeping quiet about." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken histories and community secrets. Sarah's heart raced. She could feel Jake's eyes boring into her, filled with a mix of curiosity and concern. "What is it, Mike?" she urged gently, her pulse quickening, hoping for truth rather than a betrayal of their fragile unity. The sheriff took a breath, looking as if he were summoning courage from deep within his chest. The wealth you see splattered in that article, it's not just about the politicians. It's about us too, our mistakes, our struggles. I lost my brother to the cycle of despair this town has become accustomed to. But I didn't just lose him, I sent him away, thinking that was the only way I could keep him safe from what's outside this town. Gasps echoed around the auditorium as people exchanged glances, memories flooding back. Sarah felt it too. So many silent stories told in sideways glances, unmade phone calls, empty chairs at dinner tables. What do you mean? She encouraged. What else is being hidden? Mike squared his shoulders, the sheriff in him shining through the vulnerability. A lot of folks here bought into the lie that we could find freedom in wealth. But wealth ain't just dollars, it's the lives we live and the people we love. The choices our families make that push us further apart. I've remained quiet, tried to keep the peace until now. His voice hardened, awakening anger mixed with regret. But this community needs more than silence. As his voice rose, the crowds moved restlessly, faces softening from judgment to concern, from fear to understanding. A small spark ignited among them, someone raised a hand, saying what everyone thought: we can't ignore this anymore. A wave of warmth flowed through Sarah as she realized they were beginning to unite, a partnership blooming from the ashes of their shared suffering. But doubt lingered, would it be enough? The questions turned sharp, piercing the heart of what she believed. What about my father? She whispered, almost to herself. What about those who still cling to lies? Before Mike could respond, Sarah felt a sudden wave of vertigo, as if the earth was shifting beneath her. This was just the beginning, but she sensed a storm rising, one that could either bring change or destroy what little connection remained. From the back of the room, a voice roared, "We're tired of being ignored." Others joined in, shouting not just in despair but in hope. "Together, we are stronger," shouted a woman, raising her fists in solidarity. As cheers erupted from the crowd, a sense of empowerment filled the air, like the beginning of a new chapter. Just then, someone from the far side of the auditorium shouted a name that sent chills down Sarah's spine. What about Spencer? He's in trouble again. That name cut through the excitement like a knife. It was her father's, and with it came a rush of memories, anger, clashing ideals, and their current distance. Would this rallying cry pull them together or push them apart even further? As Sarah prepared to respond, anticipation swirled like a current in the room. She knew this was a turning point, but she had no idea how deep the roots of division ran. "Come forward, let us talk about this," she urged, heart pounding as eyes turned toward her, and uncertainty hung thick in the air. How would they navigate the rough road ahead? Would they stand firm together or lose everything they had? The moment echoed with a million unanswered questions, and as the tension hung heavy, Sarah realized this was just the beginning of a journey that could reshape their lives forever. What truths lay buried beneath their feet? The atmosphere crackled with tension. Sarah felt the weight of every gaze directed at her, the fervor and fear mingling in the air. The mention of her father's name was an icy reminder of the chasms that had formed between them, fueled by disappointment and unfulfilled expectations. As people turned their attention to her, anticipation danced around her like a well-worn shawl, comforting yet heavy. "Spencer," she said softly, hardly voicing the name that stirred a tempest inside her. "What trouble is he in now?" A man in the front row, his face etched with worry, spoke up. "We heard he's back on the streets again, Sarah. He was seen with that bad crowd, and you know how that ended last time." A tightness gripped her chest. She had hoped he'd found his way back, that maybe the town's support had meant something after all. A part of her believed he could change. Another part was all too aware of how far he had fallen. She looked back at Mike, whose eyes mirrored her own, conflict, understanding, yet resolute. "Make no mistake, it's our responsibility too," he said, his voice steady, echoing the rallying cry around them. "We've all played a part in this, turning our backs when we should have reached out. To be strong as a community means lifting each other, helping each other rise instead of pushing away in shame. A murmur of agreement swelled through the crowd, feeding an energy that felt electric. Sarah took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts as tension seeped out, replaced by determination. We can help. We need to help each other. This isn't just about Spencer. It's about everyone, all our families. We've lost so much by holding on to our pride. The emotions surged and morphed, the initial trepidation fading into something powerful. Whispers became shouts, people recalling their own struggles, unearthing the common threads of hardship woven into their lives. Sarah's heart beat faster. This was the unity she had yearned for, even as uncertainty lingered like a shadow. And then, an elderly woman, her voice tremulous yet loud, stood up. I used to know Spencer as a child. He was bright, full of promises. He needs us now more than anything, like we all do. The room erupted with voices, rallying to her sentiment. Sarah felt a surge of fierce hope. They were vocalizing what had long been trapped within their hearts, the fear of judgment now morphing into collective strength, but a question clawed at her throat, overcoming the excitement swirling around. But how can we trust again? How can we reach out when we're afraid of being hurt? Silence encased the auditorium, the question hanging like a delicate thread in the air. The atmosphere shifted. Moments passed, and slowly, heads nodded in time with the quiet murmurs of realization. They had been through this cycle of hurt and distance far too many times. This was their chance to reshape their narrative, to take a stand together, but it wouldn't be easy. They needed to forgive, not just the failures of others but their own hidden weaknesses. Would they step forward as one community, catching each other as they stumbled into the unknown? Just then, another voice broke in, clear yet uncertain. What do we do first? Is anyone willing to find Spencer? The question lingered, a bridge to the next crucial step. As they spoke and planned, with charts laid out and names given priority, Sarah's heart pounded with renewed purpose. She sensed that the undercurrent of fear was giving way to hope, a hope that could heal wounds, restore families, and redefine their community, but lingering uncertainties clouded her mind. Was she strong enough to lead? Could they truly reach Spencer and, with him, reclaim their lost pieces? The crowd began to strategize, momentum building like a tide, but her personal struggle loomed. Sarah felt the enormity of those challenges ahead, and the real battle was just beginning. What would be the first step forward? As the discussion gathered steam, Sarah felt the heat of excitement and uncertainty swirl around her. She stood at the front, heart racing, as ideas for finding Spencer flew like sparks in a fire. Each person chimed in with stories, strategies, and a hint of determination that she hadn't seen before. Let us form a search party. Someone called from the back. We can split into groups and search the neighborhoods where he might be. The suggestion ignited a fervor. Yes, she thought, it was bold, but what if they didn't find him? The fear of failure gnawed at her, yet she sensed a hunger among the crowd to try to reach out and make a difference, even when the odds seemed slim. We need to talk to his friends and family, Mike added, keeping her focus. They might know where he hides. Sometimes the answer's right there, just buried under the noise. That's right, the elderly woman from earlier said, her voice stronger now. We should also share what he used to love. Like that place by the river. He might just be there, getting lost in his memories. A ripple of agreement echoed through the room, and with each word, Sarah felt a flicker of courage. They weren't just strategizing, they were transforming, bringing their scattered intentions together into a compassionate mission. But she paused, feeling the weight again. What if he doesn't want to be found? What if he pushes us away? A tangible hush settled over them. Fear met resolve. Heads bowed slightly as though they were all wrestling with that question. Then we show him we care anyway, a voice emerged from the crowd. He deserves that much. It's what we all need, really, just to know that someone sees us, even in our darkest moments. A sense of shared vulnerability enveloped Sarah, like a cloud of collective grief and hope. She thought of Spencer's face, how vibrant it once was. He had dreams and laughter before the noise of life drowned it out. She realized how fragile everyone was, including herself. As plans solidified, a buzz of commitment filled the air. They decided to meet again the next day to gather supplies, organize volunteers, and share their finding strategies. But something gnawed inside of Sarah. They were moving, yes, but would it be enough? When the meeting concluded, she felt buoyed yet burdened. The people were ready, united in this cause. Still, doubts crowded her mind. Was she really prepared for the realities of finding someone who may have lost all hope? "Sarah," Mike said softly, pulling her aside. "You don't have to carry the weight of this alone. We'll help you. You just need to take the first step." His support offered a flicker of comfort. But as she looked out into the bustling crowd, joy mingled with apprehension. "Let's just hope Spencer is ready to step back into the light," she whispered, though her heart trembled with uncertainty. As she departed the auditorium, her mind swirled with what lay ahead. Underneath all the chatter about plans and strategies, there was a question that hung, heavy and unspoken among them: what if this journey into the past brought back not only Spencer but the ghosts that haunted them all? There was wisdom in community, yet wisdom could only take them so far. Could they really heal the scars of loss and bring someone back from the brink? Tomorrow would tell if the courage ignited tonight would be enough. As she stepped into the cool night air, she clung to the tiny flame of hope burning inside her. But what if the fight was bigger than they ever expected? What if Spencer wasn't the only one who needed saving? The next day dawned with a thick mist hanging over the town, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Sarah woke up early, her heart still heavy with a mix of hope and fear. The meeting from last night replayed in her mind like a loop that refused to break. They were doing this for Spencer, but what if they opened wounds not just for him, but for each of them? As she got ready, she glanced at her reflection. The determination in her eyes seemed feeble against the weight of uncertainty she felt. She grabbed her jacket and headed out, the cool air biting at her skin, but she welcomed it. It felt alive, like the threads of community she had felt just a few hours before. Arriving at the community center, she found the room buzzing. People were already sorting through supplies, gathering flashlights, water bottles, and maps. The sense of purpose enveloped her as she joined them, but a nagging question hung at the back of her mind: what if Spencer didn't want their help? "Hey, Sarah!" Mike shouted, his energy infectious. "Look at this. We've got a map of all the spots near the river. We can start here." He pointed to a pin marking a shaded area beneath a cluster of trees. "Perfect," she replied, trying to muster enthusiasm. But inside, doubts festered like an unhealed scar. As the teams formed, each person's eyes shone with resolve, their collective determination stripping away Sarah's hesitation, if only a bit. She felt a sense of camaraderie blooming among them, as stories began to flow. Laughter intertwined with worries, creating a bond that held them together like glue. "Remember last summer?" a young woman named Jessie said. "We all sat around that bonfire by the river. Spencer was telling those ridiculous jokes. I can still hear him laughing." The memory brought a smile to Sarah's lips, but it was tinged with sadness. That was the Spencer they all missed, the light in the darkness. "Let us find that light again," Mike said with conviction, bringing everyone back to focus. They split into groups, forming small circles of resolve. As Sarah took her team and set off toward the river, her heart raced with every step. There was a faint sound of flowing water, and that rhythmic noise soothed her anxious mind. But it also stirred something deep within, reminders of joy, of moments they had all shared with Spencer. However, when they arrived at the river's edge, silence hit them like a wall. The stillness felt wrong, as though the earth itself stood vigil for the missing spark in their lives. "Where do we even start?" a young man named David asked, scanning the horizon as if Spencer would appear out of thin air. "Let us look around. He could be watching, and maybe we just need to show that we care," Sarah said, pushing her fear aside. They spread out, searching for signs or remnants of Spencer, trying to piece together the puzzle of his absence. The air was thick with unspoken words. Every rustle in the leaves, every ripple in the water, felt like a whisper of hope. Suddenly, Jessie shouted, "Over here!" Gathering around her, Sarah felt a pit form in her stomach. As they approached, they found something, a faded photograph half buried in the mud. It was of Spencer and his friends, all smiles and sun-soaked laughter. "What if he comes back?" asked David, a tremor in his voice. "What if he can't?" Sarah thought, but instead, she held the photograph close. This moment wasn't just about finding Spencer. It was about reawakening everything they valued and perhaps something they all buried too deeply. Pushing away the unease, she turned to her team. "Let us keep looking. He needs us now more than ever." But as they continued their search, a new question lingered in the air. What if the journey revealed more about themselves than they ever wanted to confront? In the depths beneath the surface of their collective mission, healing loomed as a potential outcome, but also a terrifying uncertainty. What truths would they uncover, and could they face them united? The riverbank felt foreign, a haunting mix of nostalgia and fear, as Sarah's team combed through the foliage. Each glance exchanged spoke volumes of their shared uncertainty. They dug deeper into the earth and memories, hoping to find a clue that could lead them to Spencer, or at least offer some closure. "Look!" David shouted again, pointing excitedly as if he might finally unearth a treasure. Everyone rushed over, their hearts racing. In his hand was a small, rusted item. As he brushed off the dirt, the glimmer of metal caught the sunlight. "What is it?" Jessie asked. The anticipation was almost tangible. "A keychain," David muttered, lowering it to inspect it more closely. Sarah recognized the design. It was one Spencer had used often. The sight of it made her stomach turn. It was a fragment of the boy they all adored, now tarnished and lost, much like their hope. "Maybe it's a sign," Jessie suggested, trying to breathe life into their worries. "He could be in trouble, but he's still holding on to things that remind him of us." "Or it means he's been here," Sarah added, but doubt coated her words. She felt the weight of grief pressing on her chest. What were they really doing? Chasing memories like ghosts? As they continued their search, silence blanketed them. Each of them lost in their own minds, reflecting on missed opportunities and regrets. Sarah cherished those last carefree days with Spencer. They felt like a dream now etched in sunshine, filled with laughter. She tried to shake off the ache as they moved further along the river. Suddenly, Jessie gasped. "What's that?" She pointed to a tangle of branches and wildflowers further down the bank. They hurried towards her voice, hearts pounding, only to discover a crushed soda can. It was broken but still there. Such a simple object, buried beneath a splash of greenery. Yet to them, it was a reminder of carefree summer spent chatting and laughing along the river. They all agreed to bring their favorite drinks for their next outing, never considering it might be their last together. Spencer loved this flavor. Mike chuckled warmly, the sound echoing against the water. Sleeping deep and undisturbed, the air shifted. A shared realization hung between them. Small tokens of Spencer's presence echoed around them. It led them to reminisce, but also seeds of guilt started sprouting. Were they truly doing enough for him? The what-ifs came crashing in again like a tide against the shore. "Do you think we've done everything we could?" David asked, his voice barely a whisper. A chorus of half-shrugged shoulders and downcast eyes answered. Sarah felt a surge of frustration rise inside. "We have to keep believing," she urged, the heat of conviction bubbling up. "We can't think like that. We won't give up on him." But deep within, a tremor of doubt taunted her resolve. What if their search uncovered more than just memories and items? What if it revealed the raw, aching truths about each of them, their failures, their fears? Would they be able to bare their souls, stripped down to the core, to each other? The path was unclear, but they continued walking, arm in arm, through the mist. The sun began to peek through, warming their backs with golden tendrils. Maybe hope could conquer uncertainty. Maybe love could bring Spencer back to them, but as they turned a bend, Sarah froze. A set of footprints big and unmistakable were imprinted on the damp soil, leading away from the river. "Do you see that?" She breathed out, a mix of disbelief and elation gripping her heart. What if they weren't too late? What if this journey was only beginning? And with that, a surge of adrenaline raced through the group. This was no longer just a search, it was a discovery that could change everything. A wave of energy washed over the group as they leaned in closer to examine the footprints. The tracks were deep, suggesting the person who made them hadn't just passed by. They were heading somewhere with purpose. "Do you think it could be him?" Jessie asked, her voice trembling with hope. Sarah crouched down, noticing the distinct pattern in the mud. "They're fresh," she murmured, almost to herself. A rush of emotions surged through her: fear, hope, and determination intertwining like vines. "Let us follow them," Mike said, rising to his feet, a focused look on his face. He could be nearby. With a rallying cry of agreement, they moved forward, the cautious excitement replaced by urgency. The further they went, the more the path opened up around them. Sunlight broke through the trees, illuminating their route in flickers. Sarah's thoughts dotted back to those evenings around the fire, days by the water, all missed opportunities to say how much they loved him, how vital he was to their lives. She felt a tightening in her throat and willed herself to shake it off. They could afford no distractions now. The tracks led them deeper into the woods, away from the comforting sounds of the river. As they pressed on, familiar sights slipped away, replaced by dense undergrowth. The air grew cooler and hush settled over the trees. "Are we sure this is a good idea?" David asked, pausing. What if it's not him?" Sarah turned to him, frustration bubbling to the surface again. "What's the alternative, David? Just stand here and do nothing?" Jessie stepped in, placing a hand on David's shoulder. "We promised we'd look for him. We have to believe that he's out there." The conviction in her voice was unmistakable. They pressed on. Sweat trickled down their backs as they navigated the thick brush. It was quiet now, too quiet, which only heightened their nerves. Suddenly, a rustling sound drew their attention to the left. They froze, hearts pounding. "Did you hear that?" Mike whispered, eyes darting toward the noise. The group collectively held their breath, past regrets and unfulfilled hopes floating in the air. Could it be? Before they could react, a figure emerged from the shadows. Their hearts leapt into their throats as they strained to recognize the silhouette. Sarah squinted, her heart racing faster than ever. It's just a deer," Mike breathed in relief, the tension slowly ebbing away. "Just a deer," Sarah echoed, feeling foolish for the way her stomach had dropped. As the frightened deer bounded away, the group shared a nervous laugh, their relief palpable. But now, frustration replaced the anxiety in Sarah's chest, swirling with determination. She suggested they keep moving, pushing the unsettling feeling away like dead leaves in the wind. "Let us not lose sight of what we're searching for," she led the charge, their footsteps resonating under the cool canopy. But as they rounded another bend, a chilling sight came into view: a makeshift tent crafted from fallen branches and leaves. It was hidden well, almost camouflaged against the woods. "Should we check it out?" Jessie whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "What if it's not safe?" David warned, apprehensive. "We have to. We're this close," Sarah urged, feel the pull of fate tightening around them. And with that, they approached the tent, each step echoing with the questions looming in their hearts. Were they prepared for whatever they might find there? Could this be the moment that changes everything? Lifting a hand, Sarah pushed the flaps aside, and the darkness within swallowed her emerging hope. Inside the tent, the air felt stale and heavy, as if it had been holding its breath. Shadows danced at the edges, and for a moment, Sarah hesitated. It was dark in there, too dark to see anything clearly. She stepped back, her heartbeat echoing in her ears, but something urged her to push forward. "Wait," Mike said, peering over her shoulder. "Let me grab one of the flashlights." The group had thought to bring supplies just in case, and their small collection of gear was a lifeline now. He fumbled with the bag before producing a beam of light that cut through the darkness like a knife. The light landed on piles of scattered belongings, old clothes, a faded backpack, even a pair of boots. Sarah's stomach churned. This could be a sign maybe someone had been living here, someone who might have answers. Do you think he is? Jessie trailed off, unable to finish the thought. He could be, Sarah said, trying to keep her own voice steady, though the words felt like a fragile promise, a thin thread of hope in a tangled web of despair. As Mike moved the flashlight around, Sarah saw something that made her pulse quicken. A small journal lay tucked beneath a pile of leaves, its cover weathered but partially open. Hey, look at this! Sarah reached for the journal, her fingers trembling slightly. There was a chance that this could lead them to him, or at least give them an insight into what had happened. The group crowded around her, the beam of light illuminating the pages. They could see hastily scrawled notes, sketches, and even names. Jessie leaned in, her eyes scanning rapidly. This is someone's life. It's personal. It's also something we need to read. Sarah turned the pages carefully, her heart thrumming as she tried to make sense of the fragmented thoughts laid out before her. But then look at this. David pointed to one entry, written in a shaky hand that looked alarmingly familiar. That it can't be! Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She felt a chill wash over her. The name scribbled in the margin was unmistakable. Is that? Jessie's voice trembled as they all exchanged glances, disbelief washing over them like a sudden tide. Guys, we need to search the tent now, Sarah said, urgency clinging to her words. They began rummaging through the belongings, each item feeling more significant than the last. As they searched, realization settled like a dark cloud. The possessions strewn about were not just remnants, they told a story of survival, of being lost. The tent felt less like a shelter and more like an echo of a struggle that resonated through the woods. Suddenly, from the back of the tent, Jessie let out a gasp. Guys! Over here! They rushed to her side, where she had uncovered a small compartment hidden beneath a loose floor mat. A flash of hope ignited in Sarah's chest as Jessie pried it open, revealing a slender box, intricately carved and surprisingly well preserved. Open it, Mike urged, his eyes wide with an electric mix of anticipation and anxiety. As Jessie lifted the lid, a strange light flickered within, its contents glinting. Moments felt like hours as they held their breath together, believing that maybe, just maybe, the answers they sought were finally within reach. And then the box creaked open. As the soft glow illuminated their faces, a tangled web of secrets began to unravel before them. What they found inside could either ignite their hope or bring them crashing down. The box opened slowly, revealing a collection of small, folded papers and what looked like an old locket. The soft luminescence bathed their faces, illuminating the flicker of curiosity and apprehension in their eyes. Each of them took a step closer, hearts racing. Is that? Jessie reached for the locket first, its surface cold against her warm fingertips. She pulled it closer to the light. It looks like it belongs to someone special. Maybe it's a clue, David suggested, whispering as if the very air around them could hear. A connection to where he might be gone. Jessie opened the locket with trembling hands. Inside, they found two tiny portraits, a man with a warm smile, and a woman whose eyes sparkled with life. There was a sense of intimacy about the faces that sent a streak of longing through Sarah's chest. Do you recognize them? Mike asked, leaning in closer. No, Jessie admitted, her voice a mix of disappointment and intrigue. But this must mean something to whoever was here. As they studied the locket, Sarah's gaze returned to the folded papers. She picked one up, the paper crisp and yellowed, and began to unfold it. Each crease whispered secrets of a life once lived, a life that intersected with their own. The first note contained a list of names they recognized, along with several addresses. It didn't make sense at first, but each name felt like a breadcrumb leading into a dark forest. Anxiety gnawed at Sarah's stomach, but she pushed through, focusing on the next paper. Guys, listen to this. Sarah read aloud, "To whoever finds this, I hope you understand. I am not just a ghost hiding here. I am seeking something important, something I lost. My past is intertwined with these woods, and the truth beckons me deeper." The words hung in the air like an uninvited guest, heavy and intrusive. Each member of the group exchanged glances, questions written across their faces. "What do you think it means?" Jessie asked, bite-sized hope painted across her features. "Maybe it means we're not just looking for someone," Mike pondered. "But seeking answers to something bigger." A chorus of silence met his revelation. An urgency twinkled in Sarah's chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that the person who wrote the notes had experienced an echo of their own desperation. That a shuffle of weight drew their focus back to the box. David was pulling out another paper, eyes brightening as he unfolded it. "Sarah, it's another note, and it's dated." The date was scrawled in a hurried hand, and her heartbeat quickened when she realized it was mere weeks ago. This was real. Whoever was here was still in the vicinity. Maybe they were closer than they thought. "Should we go after them?" Jessie whispered, enthusiasm mingling with fear. The thrill of the chase was palpable, yet the uncertainty loomed larger. "Absolutely," Sarah said, a fire surging within her. "But we need to be smart about this." As they packed the box back up, determination replaced uncertainty. The sunlight outside the tent had shifted, casting a new warmth, signaling a change in their course. Just then a rustling noise broke through the stillness, and everyone froze, eyes wide. Was something or someone nearby? "What was that?" Jessie whispered, a tremor in her voice. "Only one way to find out," Mike replied, his voice steady despite the fear sketching the corners of his mouth. They gathered their courage, hearts pounding, collective breaths held in anticipation. As Sarah peered toward the entrance of the tent, the world outside felt charged, ready to unveil its mysteries. Would they step out together, or were they about to face something they were not prepared for? Their journey was just beginning, and the woods promised both danger and discovery. With their hearts pounding, Sarah led the group out of the tent, every nerve wired with the thrill of possibility. Sunlight leaked through the trees, illuminating the path ahead. The woods felt alive and full of secrets, each rustle in the leaves hinting at truth waiting to be uncovered. "Stay close," she whispered, almost instinctively protective of her newfound family. Michael positioned himself beside her, while Jessie and David brought up the rear, their camaraderie submerged in a sea of determination. Each one felt the weight of their mission. This wasn't just about Spencer anymore, it was about rediscovery, healing, and building the community they had all yearned to be part of again. "Do you think it's him?" David broke the silence, the anticipation bubbling out of him. "I have to believe it is," Sarah stated, a fierce resolve anchoring her words. As they pressed deeper into the woods, they began to notice things: the echoes of laughter hiding within the trees, the scattered remnants of games played long ago, memories clinging to the very air. They could almost feel the spirit of the community coursing through them, a reminder of who they had wanted to be, supportive, resilient, and unyielding in the face of darkness. Suddenly, Mike stopped, pointing ahead, his eyes wide. Emerging from behind a thick cluster of bushes, they spotted a weathered backpack just like Spencer's, crushed against the ground. "Could it be?" he murmured, urgency washing over them all like a wave. Together, they approached, their hearts racing. It was unmistakably Spencer's. With shaky hands, Sarah reached for the backpack, revealing its contents: wrinkled clothes, a forgotten sketchbook, and a small object that glimmered in the dappled light. "It's his!" she exclaimed, emotion bubbling within her. How could something that belonged to him be here in the woods, as if it was the only remnant left of a fading memory? "Look!" Jessie gasped, holding up a crumpled piece of paper. There's a note. Unfolding it, she peered at the handwriting, a mix of hope and despair spilling onto the page. "I'm sorry for leaving, I just needed to breathe. Please, if you're looking for me, don't give up." The air turned electric as they absorbed each word. "He's alive," Sarah breathed, tears brimming in her eyes, wonder mixing with joy. At that moment, something profound shifted in the air. They were no longer just a group of people with a cause, they were a family woven together by threads of hope. "We have to find him," Mike declared, his voice steady and resolute. The once muted fear inside Sarah transformed into a fierce determination. They would not stop until they brought Spencer back home. Following the note's unseen pull, they ventured further into the woods, driven by the urgency of connection. Soon, they stumbled upon a small clearing. It opened up like a forgotten sanctuary, and to their astonishment, they found a familiar figure standing at the edge of the river, staring out into the water. "Spencer!" Sarah yelled, her heart swelling. The figure turned, ragged but unmistakably him, eyes wide with shock. She took a step forward, fighting the rush of tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "We've been looking for you." His expression morphed from surprise to uncertainty, anxiety flickering like a fragile flame in his eyes. "Why?" he asked, his voice thin. I thought you were better off without me." "No," she cried, the words breaking free. "We're all in this together. Your family, Spencer. You always have been. We need you back." He hesitated, the burden of loneliness written all over his face, but between them surged a current of something hopeful, an unspoken promise of acceptance. And in that moment, they all stepped closer, hands reaching out to bridge the gap between them. "Please," Jessie added, her voice also trembling, "we want to help you. All of us. This sacred bond of ours, it's still alive." Spencer's walls began to crumble, those defenses carefully constructed from pain teetering on the brink of collapse. Could he trust them again? With a breath of hesitation, Spencer took a step forward, connecting with the laughter from the past that had floated on the breeze for so long. "I don't know if I can." He paused, pain reflecting in his eyes. "I'm so lost." Sarah reached for him, her hand steady, as if drawing him back to the warmth of connection. "We'll find our way together, just like we always should have." As he nodded slowly, their embrace was fragile yet fierce. A collective breath escaped from all of them, as if the release of hope could ignite something brighter. The weight of decisions, regrets, and lost time began to lift, carried by the gentle winds rustling through the trees. The golden sunlight poured down, warm and forgiving. They could feel it, the embers of their journey flickering back to life. With Spencer by their side, they turned to the trail that led home, an unspoken understanding binding them together. This was just the beginning of a renewed quest, not just to find each other, but to reclaim their community, heal their wounds, and learn to walk forward with heads high. And as they made their way back, something shifted in Sarah's heart, an acceptance that they would face anything thrown at them, not as strangers divided by opinions, but as a family united by love. "Let us talk when we get home," she said. "About everything." She glanced at Spencer, who nodded, a hint of relief spilling into his eyes as the weight of connection fell gently onto his shoulders. Nothing would be easy, but together, they could rewrite their story, one stitch at a time. The winds of change carried them forward, blending the laughter of the past with the promise of tomorrow, and with that, the sun dipped lower, casting a warm glow over a boundless journey heading home. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next chapter of this incredible story. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support, because it truly makes a difference. Comment your thoughts and feelings about this ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Together, let's build this community of change.